am Professor B.S. Anuradha from the Department of Microbiology, Faculty of Science, and also Dean of Faculty of Science from Chaitanya Deemed to be University. Today, we shall go into the most important aspect in the physiology of bacteria, that is bacterial sporulation, or otherwise called as endospore formation. So what are these endospores? Endospores are actually unicellular structures, and they are mostly produced in plants, algae, bacteria, fungi and protozoans. Spores are mostly produced during unfavorable conditions, like when they are without nutrients, desiccation, high temperature, pH changes, etc. And these spores are said to be highly resistant structures. When coming to bacteria, these spores are said to be of two types, endospores and exospores. Endospores are formed within the vegetative cells, that is inside the cell. Whereas coming to exospores, they are formed either or inside, or that is on one end of the vegetative cell or on the surface of the cell. This type of spores we mostly see in fungi, which are very easy to be dispersed. Whatever it is, spores have a very remarkable capacity of sustaining and resisting very harsh conditions. And these spores play a very important role, especially in any type of physiological functioning. A large number of gram-positive, especially bacteria, can form special, resistant, dormant structure which we are calling it as endospores, like species of Bacillus, Clostridium, Sporosarcina, and even some Actinomycetes members. The best example we can give is Clostridium tetani, which produces tetanus, Clostridium perfringens, which is said to cause wound infections, Clostridium botulinum, which can cause botulism. So these are the organisms which cause deadly diseases. And we also have some spores produced by Actinomycetes species. The best example we can give is the earthy smell which we get after the first shower of rain. This is because of an organism called Streptomyces geosmin, which is in the form of a spore during the harsh summer, and whenever the first rain or first shower comes in, the spores germinate to produce that particular earthy smell. Now, coming to endospore from bacteria, as I was talking about, they are dangerous pathogens. Endospores are of great practical importance in food, industrial and medical microbiology. Endospores can be examined both by light microscope as well as electron microscopes. And depending upon the position of the spore in a spore mother cell, we can divide them into central spore when the spore is located in the center, subterminal spore when it is present towards a terminal, and terminal spore when it is completely present on the terminal of that particular spore mother cell. Now coming to the staining techniques, spores are very difficult to stain. We cannot stain them using the usual crystal violet or iodine. So spores are mostly observed as intracellular, retractile bodies in unsustained cell suspensions, or sometimes as colorless areas. The spore wall is relatively impermeable, but dyes can be made to penetrate by heating the preparation. So mostly we undergo or we do spore staining by using a special type of stain called as malachite green or carbol-fuscin. So these are added to the smear, heated, so that the stain penetrates into this particular thick spore coat and they are stained. And even, for example, even if we add a decolorizing agent, they do not get stained. Now coming to the resistance of these spores. Endospores are resistant to both heat as well as dry sterilization. They are resistant to ultraviolet radiation, extreme desiccation, and also by using bacterial enzymes like lysozymes. They are also resistant to chemicals like detergents, organic solvents, etc. And there are some spores which are said to be remained viable for almost 1 lakh years. There are many types of spores which have been extracted from excavations, and when again grown in a nutrient media, they have again germinated to produce the vegetative cells. So endospores are very, very resistant to most of the physical as well as chemical factors. Now coming to the structure of a spore. This is a typical structure of a spore when you see it under an electron microscope. So it has a coat, outer membrane, cortex, germ cells and inner membrane. So now we shall go into what are the characteristics of these layers of this particular spore. Now the spore often is surrounded by a very thin delicate membrane covering called the exosporium. It's like a balloon covering. But all spores, all bacteria do not produce exosporiums. Only some species of bacteria are said to produce this particular exosporiums. This exosporium is mostly made up of proteins. It is impermeable and also responsible for the spores resistant to chemicals and chemical detergents. Now, lying below this particular exosporium and spore coat is the cortex, which occupies large amount of the spore volume, and it rests beneath the spore coat. It is made up of peptidoglycan that is less cross-linked than in vegetative cells. Cortex helps in dehydration process during sporulation and thus provides the spores to be resistant to high temperatures. It also has a germ wall which protects from potentially damaging chemicals and also protects the central core of that particular spore. The spore wall or otherwise called as the core wall is inside the cortex and surrounds the protoplast or core. The core has a normal cell structure such as ribosomes and nucleoli, but they are metabolically inactive. There is no any type of physiological functioning that is taking place inside the spore. The exosporium and spore coat both protect the spore from chemicals. The core plays a major role in the resistance because of the very low water content. It also contains a special type of substance called as dipicolonic acid complex with calcium ions and slightly lower pH. This calcium dipicolonate complex is only observed in endospores. It is completely absent in a vegetative cell. You will not find any amount of calcium dipicolonic acid in a vegetative cell. But the major protection of the DNA is due to small acid-soluble DNA binding proteins, also called as SASPs, which saturate the spore DNA. These are the ones which help the spores or which help the DNA of the spore to sustain even UV radiations. Several types of this SASPs are there, but alpha and beta play a major role in resistance. Mutants which do not make this alpha and beta SASPs are considered to be more sensitive to UV radiations, desiccations and chemicals. The central core portion is the one which contains DNA, small amounts of RNA, ribosomes, very few enzymes and nearly 40% of dipicolonic acid. This dipicolonic acid helps in preventing the damage against DNA by chemicals present in the environment. The outer and the inner coat are made up of proteins and they provide chemicals and chemical resistance to the spores. Now, if this is the diagram of a spore or endospore formation. So you can see the different types of spores. We have the central spore, subterminal spore and the terminal spore, and this is the structure of the endospore after it is formed. Now, what are the protective factors in a spore? The spore, as we said, is resistant to many number of physical and chemical factors. This is because of the spore coat proteins, spore pigments in coat, dipicolonic acid in the core, and SASP in the core. These are completely absent in a vegetative cell. So this is the structure of the typical dipicolonic acid, otherwise called as pyridine 2,6-dicarboxylate. It is a unique spore core which exists mostly as a calcium chelate. It mostly is about 10% of the dry weight and is important in heat resistance. This calcium dipicolonic acid is only present in endospores. It is completely absent in a vegetative cell. Now coming to the stages of sporulation. So how is a vegetative cell which was resistant to temperature, which was resistant to desiccation, resistant to UV radiation, resistant to chemical detergents or chemicals, how it has completely converted itself into a endospore which is resistant to all the above factors. So coming to the first stage, that is a vegetative cell, where cells are undergoing normal vegetative growth. This is mostly defined as stage 0. Then coming to the stage 1, here the chromatin network slowly condenses. So you can see the condensation of the chromatin network. Then the next important step is called as the septum formation. This is the first sign of sporulation, where the cell divides asymmetrically into two not equal but unidentical two parts. One is a bigger spore called as the spore mother cell and is a smaller cell called as the forespore. Each of the two cells receive a portion of the nuclear material. So this is a complete diagram showing us the process of sporulation. As you can see, stage 1, the DNA is replicated into 2, and then we can see the septum formation of spore mother cell and the forespore, where the DNA is divided into these two spores. And then there is engulfment of the forespore by the membranes of this particular vegetative cell. This is how the spore gets thick layers, or what you call the cortex and the spore coat. Once this particular engulfment takes place, then the calcium dipicolonate is deposited between these two membranes. And once the dipicolonate gets deposited, the spore becomes refractile. The spore coat forms around the endospore, and once all the layers have been formed, the thin layer that is surrounding that particular spore and the spore mother cell slowly disintegrate, and the free spore comes out from this particular spore mother cell. So this is another diagram showing us the stages of the sporulation. So you can see here the vegetative cell and the formation of spore of that particular endospore. Like we have the asymmetric division, then the stage 2, that is formation of axial filament, then formation of cortex, spore coat, and then maturation, cell lysis, and then release of that particular spore. So the pre-spore is engulfed, as I was talking about, by the spore mother cell to form the protoplast, and finally forespore development takes place. And here, as you can see, the engulfed protoplast is now referred to as forespore, and it is amorphous in appearance, and there is no peptidoglycan yet to give it a shape. And finally, there is cortex formation, which is formed between the inner and the outer membranes of the forespore, and as the time progresses, this cortex becomes striated and multi-layered. And there is coat formation, that is overlapping the cortex development is the deposition of multi-layered spore coat, and then followed by maturation. Following this, the final stages of maturation and synthesis of dipicolonic and calcium takes place. This is the one which makes the spores resistant to UV light, temperature, pH, desiccation, and chemical disinfectants. Finally, the mother cell is lysed and the spore is released. Now, this spore stays in this particular refractile stage till favorable conditions set in. That is, either there should be presence of nutrients, or there should be moisture, or the chemical detergents or chemicals should not be there in that particular vicinity. Then this particular endospore now germinates to produce a vegetative cells, which occurs in 3 stages, that is activation, initiation and outgrowth. Coming to activation, among the agents that overcome the spore dormancy are heat, aberration. So when this particular spore is placed in environment that favors germination, that is nutritionally rich medium, these bacterial spores will not germinate until first activated by another agent that damages the spore coat. So this mostly occurs due to the heat, aberration, acidity and other compounds. Then starts the initiation. Once activated, the spore will initiate germination if the environmental conditions are favorable. Different species have evolved and there are several types of receptors which recognize different effectors as signaling as a rich medium. Binding of the effector activates an autolysin that rapidly degrades the cortex peptidoglycan, because this is the one which is very thick in a endospore. Water is taken up, the calcium dipicolinate is released and a variety of spore constituents are degraded by hydrolytic enzymes. And then comes the outgrowth. Once the cortex is degraded and outer layers results in the emergence of a new vegetative cell consisting of a spore protoplast with its surrounding wall. A period of active biosynthesis follows. This period, which terminates in cell division, is called as the outgrowth. Outgrowth requires a supply of all nutrients, especially which are essential for cell growth. And once the outgrowth takes place, the endospore is now completely germinated to form a vegetative cell which is resistant to different types of chemical reagents as well as to physical agents. So this is how a vegetative cell, which was sensitive to all the other physical and chemical factors, has converted itself into an endospore that is resistant to many number of physical and chemical factors. That's for now. We shall be talking about more physiological process in the next videos. Thank you.